Welcome back. You just heard from Adil Murtaza at Unilever's Food Service Direct. We're here now with Hilary Murdoch, Senior Director and Head of Product Marketing at Threekit, and Katie Collins, Senior Account Executive, also from Threekit. This session is transforming your B2B sales process to sell better in the digital world. Hilary, Katie, I will turn it over to you now.
Thanks so much, Olga, and thank you everyone for joining us. Really excited to take you through the evolving world of B2B sales and how you can evolve with it. Just a little reminder, I am Hilary Murdoch. I lead product marketing at Threekit. And then we also have Katie Collins, who is our account executive in EMEA, working with our customers every day to bring these kind of evolved solutions to life. So I start off with a slide that everyone should be somewhat familiar with, and it's an overview of what kind of the traditional B2B sales process looks like. When you are in the middle of a complicated deal or looking to solve really unique challenges, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to get to the right solution. And in the traditional world, that usually started with contacting multiple vendors to talk about what their solution was, to get acquainted with their sales reps, to have conversations about product specs and try to get a quote. Moved on to some custom configuration and quoting, where sales typically works really hard to come back to the buyer with something that meets their specific needs, at which point that buyer would make a vendor selection. They would have collected quotes from several different places. They would have looked at the pros and cons, made that selection, and then we get into revisions and negotiation. This is kind of the hard part, right? And actually getting to the point where there's the signature on the dotted line and you start to execute that solution. So very hand-to-hand, lots of conversations, lots of, at one point, meeting face-to-face to come up with the right solution for a buyer. Well, if there's anything you need to walk away with, it's that traditional process has been turned on its head. And the modern B2B buying journey is now more like an average consumer journey, where they're doing all of the research on their own. They're sourcing different expertise from different places. And it's become very much self-guided. So 67% of B2B buyers don't even want a salesperson as their primary source of information. No offense to you salespeople out there, but if that's the main source of where they're getting their information, where they're getting their idea of what the pros and cons of a different solution are, then they don't feel comfortable. So 67% now of B2B buyers don't want a salesperson. Most B2B buyers make it almost all the way through the journey before they even contact the vendor. That means that they've gone out, they've done the research online, they've probably looked at case studies, they've read the white papers, they've looked at reviews, of course. They more or less have made their decision before you even get that phone call. So this is a completely different buying journey and has kind of been, that's been proliferated by, of course, digital and the ability to do so much on one's own without a lot of hand-holding. The key challenge we want to talk about today is, in this new world, what happens when you sell a really highly complex or configurable product, where the salesperson really used to be the one in charge of showing you all the different ways that something could be configured, or all the different options that weren't immediately obvious to the naked eye. Salespeople used to have a really heavy hand in that process. But in this new world, what happens when people don't want that? And that's where, 3D product configuration and augmented reality comes in. The ability for the customer in real time to create the product. So visual configuration, combining products and options to come up with a quote in real time, enabling customer self-service. Again, not needing to rely on the salesperson or the vendor to show you all the nooks and crannies. You're able to do that yourself. And then finally, having a solution that fits seamlessly within an existing tech stack, whether that be a CPQ or an ERP system, whatever it is, the solution needs to make your life more easy, not hard. And that's where you need something that is going to seamlessly fit into what you're working with today. All that said, the thing that would bring this to life the best is just to look at a real use case. And for Threekit, a classic example of this is Sapphire. Sapphire is a well-known balcony manufacturer in the UK. They were experiencing long order times. They weren't giving their architects and designers the ability to visualize in real time and really provide the kind of experience that their buyers were expecting and wanted. So they needed something, frankly, more innovative. And that's where we work together with them to bring that to life. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie, and she will talk to you a little bit more specifically about this case and how product visualization helped to innovate their company.
Apologies. Thank you so much, Hilary. So I am absolutely delighted to share a little bit of the Sapphire Balconies story with you today. So for those of you that may not know Sapphire, they're actually a market leader in the world of balconies. And what they were looking to achieve was basically to improve their configurator that they previously had. And the purpose of that really was to help increase conversions, to help drive traffic to their website, obviously to increase their orders, and obviously to not only that, but to increase their brand awareness as well. So there's a few things that I would love to walk you through today, maybe just some nice little features, some of the key things that were important for them. So let's go through a few examples here. So what you'll see today, this is live on their website, so if anyone does want to take a look, feel free. But we have here a full 3D model of an example of a balcony. And there are a few things that were particularly important for Sapphire. So if I jump into what they call the cassette, we can choose various different shapes of balconies. So for example, if I wanted the parallelogram or the trapezium, all of that is going to change in real time. So hopefully you can see that the shape and the design of the balcony is changing as I'm making those particular selections. The reason why this is particularly important is, as Hilary referred to earlier, many organizations today will have a huge number of permutations of products. And it is incredibly difficult to portray all of those different variables during a B2B and also a B2C sales process. So the more that you can provide your customers up front, the more research they're able to do. And so when they do contact, they're almost a higher qualified lead. It has a higher interest and a higher conversion rate. So with that being said, let me go ahead and change a few associations here. So something that is particularly important for Sapphire, not only Sapphire, but actually quite a lot of organizations within the manufacturing industry, is something that we call parametric. And this is actually specific to having unique sizing components. So if, for example, I wanted to adjust the width or indeed the depth of my balcony, you'll notice again that this is actually changing the size as well as the shape of the balcony. Now, what is important again to highlight is that there are also rules embedded in here. So as I actually change the width maybe even further, you'll notice that the number of windows and doors has also increased. So that again is particularly important, because as an architect or as a designer, you know, I need to know this type of information if I'm looking to scale, if I'm looking to change the different components. What other knock-on impact does that have on all of the other attributes and rules? Of course, there can be things around, you know, nice little areas like drainage. So if I were to move this guy down, you can see that there's now a little drainage pipe underneath, or we can take it away and it disappears. So you can start to play around with different associations that would be relevant for the particular client that they might be working towards. In a similar fashion, we can obviously support things like the type of glass, whether it's maybe obscure, whether it's clear, the height of the glass, the height of or the type of railings that they may have. So if you start to factor in all of these different permutations, it actually becomes quite a large number of combinations. And of course, we can change things like the decking, the color, etc. The last couple things that I would love to highlight are, for Sapphire in particular, they actually wanted to showcase how they actually anchor the balcony into the building. So again, this is actually based on the rules. So if I jump back to my cassette and jump back to my sizing, if I change the width, you'll notice that only 2 anchors are now required in order to stably fit this particular balcony into the building. Whereas if I increase this, you know, maybe I need 3 or 4 anchors to increase and make sure that this particular size of balcony is secure and safe to go into the building. So again, a really nice view. And again, we can zoom in, we can zoom out to see the level of detail that is required. Another nice component for them is that they also wanted to see, excuse me, an interior perspective. So it's actually quite nice for customers to be able to see, you know, what does this actually look like from the inside out. So again, another perspective, another viewpoint in which you might like to have a little play around with. The last thing that I'd love to walk you through is that we do provide a bill of materials and support a specification. So here I have got obviously all the different components, our trapezium, our different sizing projections, the balustrade, etc. And something that is very useful for the architects and the designers to have is the ability to download a proposal. So I actually did one earlier. Just to kind of complete the cycle in terms of all of that configurable information that we have has now been transitioned into this proposal output, so that an architect, the salesperson, they can easily communicate on the design work moving forward. So there's my email, by the way, if anyone wanted to contact me. But if I were to scroll down, you'll see here that some of those visuals now are embedded into the proposal. We've got the different types of length, the different types of drainage, etc. So it's a really, really nice transition from someone, you know, having the freedom to immerse themselves in different design components, different aspects to, you know, their own creativity, and obviously transitioning that over to the sales team and the proposal section of the sales journey. So I'll pause there. Hopefully that's given you a nice flavor of some of the aspects that Sapphire has today. We're obviously working with them on the next phases of the program, which is incredibly exciting. So hope you stay tuned on, you know, what they're looking to do next. But without further ado, I will stop sharing and hand over back to Hilary in case there are any other questions or any other comments that anyone might like to have. But thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Katie. We did get a question in from the audience here that I'd like to take a minute to try to respond to. The question is, I have a lot of products. How would this scale?
Absolutely. So perhaps I can take that one. So there's a couple of different ways in which we look at scalability. The first one is from obviously an implementation perspective, but also from a licensing perspective. So Threekit as an overall platform really allows for scalability, because we actually go through this process of separating out various different parts and components, and using those parts and components and tagging them onto various different parent items. So for example, if a piece of metal or a rubber ring or a wheel or a joint or a pump, all of that particular part or component may be used across multiple different products in order to create the overall parent item. So what we can do is we can actually separate those all out and tag them to parent items. So if you're looking to basically scale, significantly scale, instead of having to recreate every single one from scratch, we can use this concept of tagging, which will significantly save time. The other aspect, of course, as well, is that we can save time when it comes to any kind of modeling work that may already have been done. You know, perhaps there are components or areas there that could be saved when it comes to scaling with similar types of products that you may be looking to launch. And last but not least, from a licensing perspective, we very much look towards enabling our customers to scale, and we would provide tiering associations on volume accordingly to support that scalability.
Great, thank you. And we do have time for just one more question here. The question that also came in via the chat box is, what does it take to get going? For example, if we don't have an existing 3D, how would I get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Hillary, do you want me to take that one, or would you like to take that one?
Go ahead.
Okay. So it's a great question, and it actually comes up quite a bit in our discussion. So different customers will be at different stages of their journey, and that's absolutely fine. So typically we say there are three different categories of where you might like to start from. So the first is, if you already have 3D model assets, that's absolutely wonderful, and we can look to import those assets into Threekit, make tweaks and changes as required, and obviously look to work with you around those existing assets. The second option, if you don't have 3D models, and that's again absolutely not a problem at all, is that we can look to work with something like a CAD model. So a lot of organizations today will have access to CAD files or something similar. Again, we can import those files and make tweaks and changes accordingly, and work with that model, work with those CAD files in order to create the 3D model assets. The third option, if you don't have anything around CAD, is just static photographs. So if you have views or perspectives of the different products or the different parts that you may want us to work from, just being able to see the different angles of those particular products, the types of materials, the textures, and any kind of understanding of the rules or the configurability that you're looking to have. So once we can see that, we actually have 3D artists, experts in-house that would be able to create those 3D model assets for you. And then we would work with you in conjunction to basically create all of the configuration. So all of the different rules, the different views, the different attributes, the different perspectives of how you want your products to be viewed, how you want them to work, what the perspective is on the website, what the experience is for the customer, as well as perhaps for the salesperson. So whichever step you are in your journey, it's absolutely not a problem. We're here to support you and make sure that you get the most support that you possibly can to start your 3D product visualization experience.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Katie. And that is all the time that we have now. So thank you again to Katie Collins and Hillary Murdoch from Threekit. Coming up next, we'll hear from Cora, Taconi, and Century Equipment. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.